All right. Hi, everybody. Today we're going to talk about how you can get started in the UX industry. So, before we jump into that, my name is Maka. For those of you that are new here, I'm a UX designer and UX mentor. I'm doing free mentoring sessions, so go ahead and click the link down in the description and sign up for one if you're interested. So, let's just jump into the presentation. Before that, go ahead and click subscribe if you've enjoyed this content, or once you're done watching it, subscribe. Would love to have you around. So we're going to talk about how to get started in UX design and really what are the things you need to succeed in this field. So to do that, I want to start kind of backwards, right? I want to start from the goal. So I'm sure a lot of you are trying to learn UX design to get a job, right? It's not just to learn a new skill. So going off of that, right, if we want to get a job, let's talk about briefly what are the things you need to get a UX job, right? So the first thing you need over here on the left is to learn the basics, right? You need to learn the basics of UX design, and there's a couple of ways that you can do that, and I'll go through them shortly. And then the second thing you need is a resume, right? And I think this is the easiest one of the three. There's a lot of resume templates out there. You can just kind of fill in your information and kind of get that one checked off. And the third thing you need is a portfolio. So a portfolio kind of shows the work that you've done, it shows the skills, and that's really what's most important when you're trying to get a job. When interviewing for UX jobs, as an interviewer, as I'm kind of looking through resumes and portfolios, I spend the most time looking at a portfolio, trying to really understand how you think, how you do work, how you communicate your work. So that's really the most important thing here. But let's go in order and kind of jump into the first thing, right, which is learning the basics. So there's a bunch of different ways you can do this, and there's a lot of videos on YouTube too talking about how to do this. I just made a video a couple of days ago explaining the differences of these, so I'll quickly kind of go through them. In terms of money, right, that's what this line represents. On the left side, you have free courses, right? So that's anything from Coursera, if you don't want to pay for the certificate, YouTube videos, and there's a lot of content out there, right? You have paid courses, right? So those are courses that maybe cost a little bit less than Bootcamps. So you're looking around anything in like the 1,000, 2,000 area, right? So like that sweet spot. Then you have boot camps that can go anywhere from like 6,000 to 10,000 to 15,000. If you do an income share agreement, you can pay up to like $27,000. So those are pretty pricey. And then a master's degree is, all the way at the end. It takes a little bit longer and is pretty, pricey. And I'm talking about these are the prices in the U.S. In other countries, it's less expensive to get a master's degree, but this is kind of, the spectrum of how to learn UX design. Below the money, I have how long it could take you, right, or how long these courses or programs are. So for the free courses, it could take you forever, right? There's no outline of what you need to know and things you can kind of check off and be like, hey, I've done all these things. I know the basics. Let's move on. On the paid courses, the length of these courses are usually anywhere like 6 to 8 weeks. And I think this is the best spot for courses because in a short time, you don't get discouraged. You learn just enough of what you need to know and you apply, you apply what you're learning. It's not just kind of like consuming, which is something that happens when you do free courses. And I'll jump into this a little bit more. And then on the bootcamp side of things, they can go anywhere from like months to years, right? And master's degree, typically a year or 2 years. So if we jump into the free courses, here are some resources that you could use, right? You can go on Coursera. They have some free courses. LinkedIn Learning. YouTube has a ton of content. And really some of the downsides to this are that, like I mentioned, right, there's no curriculum. So you can watch, hundreds of videos about one thing and like fall into the trap of going too deep on one subject rather than learning just enough of all the subjects you need to learn, right? When you're doing free courses, there's not mentorship, right? There's nobody that's kind of like checking you as you go along. um, and it just takes a long time. So even though it's free, those are the downsides to it. I think it's a great place to start to do your initial research and to see if this is a path that you want to take. But I don't suggest this path as the ultimate path of learning. This is the path that I took a couple years ago when I was learning this, and it was painful. There was a lot. It took a really long time, and a lot of trial and error. And I'll do another video where I explain kind of my path. But if you're interested, let me know, and I can share some of that with you all in the comments. So the second way you can learn basics is affordable paid courses, and this is I think this is a sweet spot. This is where I would spend my money if I was doing this again, right? So these courses have a curriculum. Most of them include some sort of mentorship. They include activities where you learn by doing, and they're short enough that you don't get discouraged and you actually learn everything you need to know. So a really good one is Interaction Design Foundation. They have like what they call their UX Bootcamp. It's like $1,200, or at least it is when I recorded this video. It includes 5 mentoring sessions, and it gives you like a year-long access, so you can do it as slow or as fast as you want. So the downside to that is that there's not like a week by week kind of breakdown. And then there's my course. I won't try to sell you guys on it. I'll leave a link in the description. But basically 6 to 8 weeks, unlimited mentorship. You get to talk to me as many times as you want and complete activities as you go along. So the next way you can learn the basics are boot camps. Like I said, here are the name of a couple that are well known. So that's General Assembly, Springboard, and Thinkful. And these are just the big players, right? If you search Learn UX Design, these are probably the top 3 that are going to come up on Google. Nothing against these programs. The length and the amount of money are just the 2 downsides to them. The curriculum is mostly, link out to other content as well as link out to videos. And then the mentorship, it's kind of like a shot in the dark. They have a lot of these programs have great mentors, but you never know who you're going to get. And you may get somebody you don't really vibe with, and then you have to just ask for a different mentor and kind of start over. So that's just like my take on the boot camps. And then the last way to learn is a master's degree. A lot of people feel like they need to have a master's degree to move into a junior UX design role. It's absolutely not necessary. You can do it if you want to, if you have the money, if you have the time. But I think you can learn this stuff and you'll learn almost everything you need to know once you already have a job. It's a very like hands-on field where you learn on the job. So I think a master's degree is just prolonging the process. If you want to do it, I'm not going to say don't do it, but it's not necessary by any means. So now that we've talked about the first thing that you need to know, which is learning the basics, let's talk about the resume, right? So this is not, I don't even have any text on the slide. It is not worth spending days and months and weeks kind of working on your resume. Look at some really great UX design resumes. Go ahead and put your information on there. If you don't have UX experience, it's okay. You can't just make up UX experience. Go ahead and try to word your current experience into something that makes sense for the UX world. So don't change what you did. But if you're able to use words that resonate with the UX design world, do that, right? But really, as I'm hiring, I'm looking at resumes briefly to see like, okay, does this person, have they had a job in any job? Do they have any sort of experience like in the work field? I'm really trying to gauge your soft skills from your resume. Like, do you know how to communicate? Have you held a job for a while that, can tell me that you're not going to like curse at a client in a meeting, different things like that. And I'm really looking for your portfolio link from your resume to be able to go see your portfolio. So if I have one tip for your resume, it's to make sure your portfolio link is clickable. Don't make me highlight it and copy and paste it. And make sure that it is visible, right? It's somewhere on the top, area of your portfolio and not hidden, in between some lines of text. So the third thing that I want to talk about is the portfolio. And I have a couple of tips, and I'll also make a couple more videos around portfolios. So the first tip that I have is focus on the content. So you want to focus on your case studies, right? Like what are the pieces of content you're putting in your portfolio, and what goes into those pieces, right? I want to make sure I understand the way you think. I want to make sure that you understand the design process, and I want to understand how you work, right? So all of this information needs to be in your portfolio. I see a lot of portfolios that are like, here was the problem, here was my role, and here's the final deliverable. That doesn't tell me much about what you did on the project, how you think, or anything like that. So unless I'm hiring you to solve the same exact problem, I can't really tell much from that type of portfolio. So you want to make sure you explain, have enough content. If you can add some videos, add videos. Really focus on the content. So from there, I'll go to my second piece of feedback, which is don't over-index on the design of the portfolio itself. I've talked to some people that have spent months, if not like, I want to say years, kind of designing a portfolio, using all these custom codes, WordPress. Like, sure, that's really cool, but it's not going to set you apart unless you have an amazing portfolio, right? That like, I don't know, does some sort of innovative UX thing, but I don't care if there's a cool transition when your portfolio opens, right? Like I'm really trying to find the work and trying to understand how you think. So use the portfolio builder. I'll drop some recommendations in the description of the portfolio builders that I suggest. UX Folio is a really good one. Use Squarespace, use Wix, any of those website builders. Those are good. Don't spend too much time, kind of starting from scratch. There's no need for that. Focus on the content, not the portfolio itself. And then include 2 to 3 pieces of work. Only having one piece of work isn't going to make a difference. So you want at least 2 pieces. And so 2 to 3 is kind of like the sweet spot to get hired for a junior role. So once I usually go through those couple of tips with students on my calls, they ask me, okay, but how do I get started, right? So if you've learned the basics in a program that does not involve learn by doing, then now you're going to have to kind of separately create a case study. So I suggest that when you're going to learn the basics, that you really do pick a program that kind of goes along. So that's why I designed my program that way. Like as you're learning, you're doing, so that by the time you're done learning, you have your first case study done. So if you are not doing a program like that, you're learning by yourself, how to start a case study is you pick a problem, right? So don't think like, ooh, I want to design an app that does this, right? Like think, ooh, I want to solve this problem, right? I want to solve the problem that starting to learn to garden is difficult. And then start from there and use the knowledge you've learned about the design process and UX design to do research and do sketches and do wireframes and go through the whole process. Document this as you go along and then add it to your case study or portfolio. I hope that makes sense. I know it was a ton of information. So if you all have any questions, my contact information is in the description. I hope some of you schedule some mentoring calls with me. I'd love to talk to you all. And if not, just comment on the description. Leave a comment below on kind of what you want to hear from me next about.